Hi, I'm Ariana, and this is the second podcast on philosophical questions and readings of Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein. The theme of self-identification and battling with it is prominent in the novel. Frankenstein's monster could be viewed as a forbidden part of himself, which he then pursues and tracks down, or an unlocked part of his imagination made manifest to haunt him. However, I think that Frankenstein and his creature could be viewed as two facets of the same character, and this postulation is substantiated by the fact they both describe themselves as a wretch. Frankenstein, in chapter 18, describes himself as a miserable wretch haunted by a curse that shut up every avenue to enjoyment. And the creature, in chapter 11, describes himself as a poor, helpless, miserable wretch, with this asyndetic list reinforcing the tragic poignancy of the statement. Hence, perhaps the novel possesses subtle schizophrenic intimations or undertones, with this idea of schizophrenia most famously known in Robert Louis Stevenson's Gothic novel, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Furthermore, from a psychoanalytical perspective, the monster not only represents a part of Frankenstein's fractured psyche, but can also be seen as a manifestation of Frankenstein's fundamentally narcissistic nature. And Frankenstein credits his knowledge as an enlightened scientist by claiming that although so much has been done, more, far more will I achieve. His enlarged ego only serves to aid his tragic downfall, and unable to find a balance between ego and id, Frankenstein soon seems to have lost all soul or sensation but for this one pursuit, becoming a man obsessed by his own success. From the perspective of Sigmund Freud, Frankenstein could also be viewed as being imprisoned within an infantile world, as he seems to possess no knowledge on the process of sexual reproduction, as instantiated by the fact he is shocked to his very psychological nature by his creature's request for a female mate, seeming that he intended not to create both male and females, exemplifying his habitation of a realm of sexual ignorance. However, not only does Frankenstein deny the rights of procreation to his creature, he also ends up avoiding this area in his own life. Though Victor refuses to make the creature a mate on the grounds of his fear that the creature would reproduce and take over the world, perhaps his fear stems from human jealousy, since he himself proves unable to form any satisfactory relationship with the opposite sex. Not only this, the notion of competition between Victor and his creation is developed in chapter 24, wherein Victor states, "At the idea that the fiend should live and be triumphant, my rage and vengeance returned, and like a mighty tide overwhelmed every other feeling." Furthermore, Frankenstein, since the beginning, wherein he creates a creature without a maternal figure, seems to be a man intent on expropriating the natural position of the maternal, and not only this, we are presented with Oedipal undertones through the fact that Frankenstein's own mother was taken in by Mr. Frankenstein, becoming a daughter-like figure before marrying Alphonse, with his father, according to Frankenstein, having been like a protecting spirit to Caroline, who committed herself to his care. And these Oedipal undertones are again manifested in Elizabeth and Victor's relationship that appears incestuous to readers. An alternate Freudian reading could view Victor and the creature as a family, with the creature's feelings towards Victor corresponding to a son's feelings towards his father, and considering the novel was written at a time of industrial upheaval, which often led to the destruction of the family, this idea of a fractured familial structure would have been contemporarily relevant and applicable. Frankenstein's own influence on this damaged structure is immense, and casts him as an utterly dislikable character in his willful negligence towards his son, in a sense. And our dislike of Frankenstein is extended through his ironic and hypocritical command: "Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows," as recounted by Captain Walton in a letter to his sister in chapter 24, since Frankenstein himself almost uses his creation as a carapace, a shield to hide behind, since the creature's vile actions against his family are all owing to him, and thus Victor can be seen as principally culpable. In addition to this, Victor's neglect of his creature means that the creature has to rely on his sense experience in learning about the world, and thus we are presented with the theme of the importance of milieu, as the creature learns from his perception and the characters around him. And this idea of the creature as devoid of parents to care for it perhaps suggests Mary's intimation of how, if bereft of caring figures in one's life, a child can lead to a life of crime. And this could perhaps link to Mary's own absent maternal figure in her life, as her mother died within a few days of her birth, so she only knew her through her writing. Thus potentially the monster's anger towards Victor, his creator, could relate to Mary's own pent-up sorrow and anger at not having had a mother in her childhood, thus lending her a fantastic capacity in writing the expressive and emotional prose of the creature. Perhaps the novel let her unburden herself of this sorrow, and in fact, the novel possesses a leitmotif of unburdening oneself, for example in Walton's letters to his sister, the silent recipient, and Frankenstein's disclosure to Captain Walton, alongside the creature's disclosures to Victor. Furthermore, the creature's nescience of who and what he is, to begin, substantiates his possession of a rational sensibility, as he learns to perceive the world, and he possesses a fantastic capacity for learning, as he learns language, which he considers a holy science. Reading Plutarch, Voltaire, Goethe's stories of young Werther, and Milton's Paradise Lost, with a supernatural precocity. And Milton's Paradise Lost is crucial, as this recounts Adam's exile from paradise, which is similar to the creature's exilement by Victor, and this also echoes his own sense of being exiled from the feeling of being a living being which he wishes to share with humanity. Hence this evokes pathos for the creature in the readers, whilst also perhaps fostering a curious admiration of the creature in our eyes, making his vile actions against others all the more surprisingly painful, since it seems we learnt with him, experiencing his first experiences with him, and thus it is highly saddening to see his descent into moral turpitude.